Dawson earlier. That's going to be who's going to do our lesson tonight on looking for love in all the wrong places. Um, believe it or not, there's no perfect couple. Even God made Eve for Adam, and even they had trouble. They had problems. But I will say, Larry and Latasha are a very special couple to us. They're a power couple. You can look at Larry and tell. Anyway, and they're dressed awesome tonight. Y'all go ahead and come on up. Um, I tell you something. There are definitely a couple of people that you can count on to have your back. So listen to what they say. You can take it to the bank.
Good afternoon. So happy to be here to share with you guys. So, how many of you have ever found yourself in a situation, in a relationship, you're like, how did I get here? It's it started out so good. And you're just like, now all of these webs, I don't even know how to fix this. I don't even know where to go from here. So, tonight we're going to give you some tools to recognize patterns because that's what happens a lot in therapy. You learn to recognize patterns so that way you won't repeat the same cycle in your life and getting no results. So, we're going to, I'll kick it off to Larry, and then we're going to kind of get into attachment styles, understanding your attachment styles, because it's very important because the Bible says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So even in your relationship, it can be perishing just because you can be misinformed about who you are as a person, how you connect with others. So tonight we're going to try to break that down for you and help you make better connections in your relationships.
Good evening, family. How y'all doing? Y'all doing good today? Are y'all doing good today? Y'all good? Okay. All right, we're gonna try to break this thing down because, like she said, listen, we all human, right? We all want love. We all want consistency, not just love, long love, right? So we want to empower you to get some understanding, because all I get, you gotta get some what? Gotta get some understanding, right? Because what makes things anxious for us? When we can't predict it, when we think that love just fall out the air, it's just gonna just hit us, right? So we gotta understand what are some things we can look for, what some things we can identify, what some things we can change, what we don't need to change, and everything else. Okay. So, well, before I start off, I want y'all to see something, and Miss Latasha is gonna come off and explain it, right? All right. You mind if I come down here for a second? Y'all could. Okay. All right. One of the problems that we mess up on all the time, right? Because we think that love, life is everything is linear, right? So we think that we start out right here. That after five, months or 6 months or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, that everything just supposed to get better, right? Because I started here, so if I start off in recovery and I graduated, right, I'm ready for my man. You know what I'm saying? If I do it, I'm ready for my woman. Like, listen, way back then, I'm here now, right? But life and love is not like that. Life and love is not linear. That means it doesn't have a start and it doesn't have an end. Only thing that has a start and end is birth and death. Because you're born, you die. That's the only thing that's like that, right? Love, life, and everything else is a circle. So I want y'all to identify to say circle. All
Circle.
right. So when we start identifying things are a circle, then we can recognize that there are patterns that has always been there. So that means that James, Mark, Luke, and John was pretty much the same guy. I ain't talking about the ones in the Bible. I'm talking about people that you probably dated. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, we ain't talking about the Bible people. The people that you dated, right? So we get frustrated because we just like, I keep on running to the same guy. Well, technically, you're dating the same guy. Are men, same women. I'm not trying to exclude you there. So when we identify that life and love life is a circle, that means that we start to understand that, hey, it might be a pitfall right here, then it might be a pitfall right here. And every time I do good, I run into the same pitfall. That's when we start using the words. Man, these men are always the same. See, I'm tired of just trusting and look around and they just keep hurting me over and over again, or I thought she was the one and then she wasn't there. So we identify that life is a circle. So we want to gain some type of control because it's all about healing. So we want to understand that, hey, life is a circle. That means that it doesn't matter if I'm 5, 10, 15, 20. My high school love might be the same as my 30 love, but I'm dating the same guy because there's the same patterns. So we're going to start going with attachment styles.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give you a really quick rough draft from the beginning. So we all have attachment styles, and how these attachment styles are formed, they're formed from when we're a baby, when we're born, from our caregiver. So some of us may have secure attachment, and I do have like a worksheet, and you can identify, do I have a secure attachment? And then the next 3 attachment styles are all insecure attachment styles. The first one is anxious attachment style. And so anxious attachment style is just kind of like what it says. It starts out like when you're a baby. If you can't trust that your caregiver will always be there, and it could be maybe they're working, maybe they're leaving you with someone that doesn't really care, maybe they have an illness, but these still create a pattern for your relationship. And then the next one is avoidance attachment style. So with avoidant attachment style, you learn that, I can't depend on my caregiver because they're inconsistent. But what it does is it creates a pattern in your brain because you're a baby. Your brain is growing, it's developing. And then the last one is a mixture of the avoidance and the anxious. So it's a mix together. And sometimes it may be called disorganized attachment styles. So all of us have one of these attachment styles. And as we're talking, I want you to think about your life, not your boyfriends or your future ones. And I want you to think about you, make it very personal for you, and think about, where do I fall? Am I secure? Because when you're secure or you're close to being secure, that's when you're ready to engage in a relationship. But if you're stuck in an anxious attachment style, avoidance attachment style, or a combination of anxious and avoidant, you're not ready. You need to work on yourself. You need to learn to love self. And a part of learning to love yourself is learning the areas where you may have some deficiency, some areas of brokenness. Not that you're broken, but the way that I receive love, the way that I perceive love may be skewed. So I just want to kind of go over the first one. So it's secure. Secure, I trust that they're going to show up. I trust that they're going to be there. And then the anxious, I don't know if I can trust them. So people, what this look like in a relationship, you may be very clingy. You may like, they got to call me every day, every minute. I can't go without them. And instead of like, if they say, I just need some time or I need a day, instead of you just giving them space, it may look like, I feel rejected because they didn't call me today. That's unhealthy. So you may have an anxious attachment style. And what you want to do to like recover from that, you want to kind of do the opposite. But you also want to be with a person that is very self-aware of themselves, so that they'll know what they're operating in. And then the last one, the avoidance, the next to last one is avoidance. So what that looks like is in a relationship, I'm hyper independent, I don't really need nobody. These may be people that are like leaders. You can detach really easily. Like you be talking to somebody one day, the next minute, I don't care, because you like, I can't depend on them no way. Because when you were a baby, you learned that I could not depend on my caregiver. And so you are easy to cut it off. And what you have to realize is you're going to have trials. You're going to have tribulations in relationships. But if you have avoidance, the very first time something happened, I'm done. And just the opposite with the anxious. You may stay on and hang on a little bit too much when you should let go.
So let me give you an example. Okay? Y'all want one example? Y'all good? Okay. So, anxious attachment style is what we call clingy. You know, you need total reassurance. You need somebody to be there 24/7. See, I was more anxious a little bit because I hate rejection, right? I'm just being, I'm a therapist. I'm open. I don't like rejection. I can deal with a lot of stuff. You start rejecting me, you start getting another side of Larry. You know what I'm saying? I'm just telling you what it
True.
is. She knows. So I was anxious because grew up as the only child, no really connections. You know what I'm saying? Everything was always kind of conditional based. So it was based on what I do for people. Like you like Larry when Larry does this. You know, when Larry's not necessarily people pleasing, but I'm modifying everything about me to fit your thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm the one that always encouraging you, you know, pumping you up. You know, we love that Larry. That's that anxious attachment style because my fear of rejection. You see what I'm saying? Because, you know, we're going to get real for a second. You know, there are real fears. It was a fear of rejection. That fear of I might not be good enough or why this person doesn't like me. You see what I'm saying? So when you experience that rejection, it started making you very anxious. It started making you kind of nervous, right? And so with that anxious attachment style, you'll find yourself, the more somebody kind of rejects you, the more clingy you try to become because you don't want that separation. Because that separation look like it's a failure to you. Now, I'll tell you the messed up part about all this, right? Opposite attract. So because I was anxious, my beautiful, lovely wife was more avoidance. So
Yes,
I
avoidant.
become clingy. She started pushing me away. And so what do you think that made me start doing? There you go.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? You become even more clingy. It's like the little kid, like, mama, why you leaving me? Don't leave me. Why? What I do? Come here. And so
Yeah.
with somebody anxious, they'll feel rejected when you push them away. But somebody avoidance, they hate being the closeness. Because, see, there's also a fear. Because it's a fear of rejection, but then also it's a fear of success. And, see, that's one thing we don't talk about. Having a successful business, having a successful relationship, that's a fear. Because if I have insecurities within my own self, deep down, I might not feel that I'm good enough for it. You see what I'm saying? Can we be real for a second? Yeah, I might not feel that I'm good enough to have this. And so you'll find out that some people can manipulate that. And when you find people that manipulate that, you'll find them constantly putting you on the opposite end, and so you're constantly triggered. So if I'm anxious, I'm always trying to prove my love, prove my worthiness. To somebody who's avoiding it, they can find out that if I push them away, they're going to come back. I ain't going to call. I don't play games with them.
Yeah. And with the anxious, as he said, for him, it's not necessarily the people pleasing, but that's normally where that falls under the anxious attachment. You will, like a lot of people, because it's kind of like a spectrum, almost like autism or Asperger's, like it could be on this end. It doesn't have to be exact. But a lot of people that people please fall under that attachment, anxious attachment style. And also, these individuals are not very secure in self because they did not develop that good self-worth, that good self-esteem. So they depend on others for validation. They depend on others for reassurance. And it's just like, okay, so if this relationship fail, I fail. So and then we're going to jump all the way to the avoidance and the anxious. So a lot of times, those are individuals that may have borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder. And what that kind of looks like is you may, because you don't really trust yourself, you don't trust others. The avoidance, you trust yourself, but you don't trust nobody else. And a lot of your relationships are surface level. So the last one, the avoidant, anxious style is like you don't trust nobody. You don't even trust yourself. But you might one day you might want to be clingy. The next day, oh, I don't want to be in a relationship. I do want to be in a relationship. You're back and forth, and it's because you have a mixture of both of them. So learning your attachment style is very helpful. And then I have some worksheets up here so you can identify your attachment style and you can learn to heal and have a more secure attachment style.
And one thing I want to say about avoidance, right? Because avoidance sounds so critical, right? But let's normalize it a little bit, okay? Because some people that are avoidance, they're not necessarily trying to hurt you. They just protect themselves above all costs, right? So let's look at this as a percentage thing, okay? So let's just say, hypothetically, me and Tasha are dating, right? And I used to tell people this in therapy. If you really want to get a woman true love, you got to find her when she's young. You know, that first love. Y'all women, y'all
Before
understand
she
that,
broken.
You know that first love, right? Y'all remember that first love, right? That I gave that person 100% love. That person got all of me love. Guys understand that too, because we understand that. We give that 100% love, right? But then after I gave 100% to let's say she gave it to Larry, and Larry broke her heart, right? And so now I'm Patrick, right? And now I'm starting to date her. She's not giving Patrick 100%. She giving Patrick about 75%. That 25% is broken. And then if it don't work out with Patrick, now she dating Tom. Tom only getting 50% now. You know, Tom coming here with this all stuff. She rolling her eyes like, I heard that before. You know, y'all look good. Yeah. And then that don't work out. Now somebody else getting 25%. Now, this is the problem, though. Now, that person is giving 25% because she's been hurt. What about if I'm giving 100%? You see what I'm saying? Now, what if I'm coming to a relationship and I'm not playing games with you? What about if I'm coming to a relationship and I'm cutting a different cloth? I'm seeing you as wife material or husband material. And so I'm not playing games. I'm being authentic me, but I don't have trauma. So I'm giving you 100%, but you only giving me 25%. So now what's happening is, now it's called self-sabotaging behavior. Now all of a sudden she's pushing me away and I'm feeling rejected. Now she became my trauma. Just like it was Larry and Patrick and Tom, now it's Tasha did it to me. And see, so sometimes we can fall into these attachment styles and not recognize it because these are barriers that's being created. We are all human. It's just like anything else. And so a lot of times people find themselves pushing good people away because the person that hurt you, they're not trying to fix you. So that's the hardest part about it. The person that broke you, I don't care if it was with your dad, I don't care if it's with your mom, I don't care if it was your best friend or whatever, that second person that came in your life, they might not be trying to hurt you, but now you became their trauma because you got that guard up. So they are anticipating, I can't do nothing right. You know, I show up 5 minutes late. You ain't never showed up. You ain't never here on time. I'm like, oh no, just 5 minutes late. What happened? But these are the things that come off so natural. Because what happened is I've been hurt so much before, so the avoidance style is I'm going to push everybody away because I don't want to be hurt again. So I want you to understand it's more than just having these titles and labels, and it's not a black and white scenario. There are a lot of gray areas when you deal with the heart. Because I tell people all the time in therapy, some people that fight you the most, if you're drowning, I'm sorry, I don't see nobody drown that's going to be like, they're going to be what? Fighting, punching, and hitting. So even if I'm trying to come and save you, I might take a couple of blows. But does that mean that you don't want to be saved? Nah. It just means that you're drowning right now. So sometimes you'll need to fall in love with persons who have the same attachment styles as you. Because when it's good, but when it get bad, it's bad, right? Because if I got avoidance, she got avoidance, that means we ain't talking for like 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm done. You done? I'm done.
Yeah. John 10:10 says, the thief come but to steal, kill, and destroy. But I come that you may have life and have life more abundantly. So what you have to understand is that person sometimes that's coming to you in a relationship, it can be, the enemy can make things look really pretty, really handsome, really fine, really nice. And it's not even the person. A lot of times, you know, if they're not aware, self-aware of their attachment style and who they are as a person, they can be used as a tool by the enemy in your life. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to you, it comes really pretty and wrapped nice. So it's so important to realize that you're going to go through things. I'm sure everybody in here has been through things in their life. The Bible even tells us you're going to go through things in this life. And when I say things, even trauma, you're going to go through things. But he said, be of good cheer because I have overcome the world. So we're telling you there is hope. Because sometimes when you're in a dark place, you feel like there's no hope. I feel like I'm not going to be able to have someone to love me. I'm not going to be able to love correctly because I keep falling into these pitfalls, these holes. But one thing you have to understand is one thing that the Bible promised that you're going going to have trials. You're going to have tribulations, but God, he wants you to have insight of the areas where you need to grow at. So where you need to grow at is your connection with people. And these connections, they formed when we were a child, when our brain was being developed. It's like a blueprint for how we view ourselves, how we view others, and how we connect with others. So understanding that you're gonna, yes, I've been through things, but that doesn't exclude me from having a healthy relationship. That doesn't exclude me from having a beautiful life. Because how many of you know that God, he loves to use the unlikely people? How many of you know that God loves, because that's gonna testify of his goodness. Like when I tell you in my own personal life, like he said, avoidance. So that I already tell you that I didn't have someone to show up for me in my childhood in an emotional and a psychological way on a consistent basis. My mother was a great mother, but oftentimes throughout my childhood, she was a single mother. And how many of you know, women, we were made to be nurturers, not always in that provider role. Yes, we can provide, but something is going to go lacking. So the thing is, I'm not making excuses, and I don't want you to make excuse for yourself, because if I can heal, you can heal, and you can have a healthy relationship.
So let's get deeper into it, okay? All right, y'all ready? All right. Big question. Well, statement, in a way. I ain't gonna say question. All right. One of the things we fall into, right, and we always have to ask ourselves this. And, I was talking to my bros in the back, and we had a nice little good conversation. Love these guys, the guys up front. Reality versus ideology. I want y'all to think about that. Reality versus ideology. A lot of times, we don't think about reality in relationships. We compare it to ideologies, meaning that we compare it to what we seen on TV, not what we actually seen. See, there's something called imposter syndrome. Have you ever heard of that before? Imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is created when I'm trying to give something or try to do something that I've never seen before. So that means, right, that if I came from a household and I did not see my father and my mother love each other, or there were very inconsistencies, or there was brokenness, or there was arguments, or they was doing this or that, right? It wasn't healthy. Then a lot of times when I get in a relationship, I'm comparing it not to my reality. I'm comparing to ideology that I seen on TV. You see what I'm saying? That when Erica dated Tim, they was perfectly in love, and dude married her. Like, when I tell y'all, and I say this in therapy all the time, Disney lied to women so much. Y'all need to understand that. Because now, I want y'all to think about it. Disney lied, because we based everything off of Disney, and Disney lied to you. Let me explain how Disney lied to you, right? The typical story, it started out with the princess, right? What dating phase go into it? Yeah, thank you. What dating phase go into all the Disneys? Snow White was asleep. Dude showed up. Rapunzel was in the castle. Dude showed up. You know what I'm saying? Snow White, all this stuff. Cinderella, she showed him. She catfished him because, she did that. But we got to understand something, that a lot of times that we seen, right, is where we base this one true love. There's no 5 years after. We don't know what happened to Cinderella after she got into the castle.
Because she had some stuff to heal from.
Yeah, she probably had some stuff to heal from, right? So what happens is, a lot of times women are based themselves on, I deserve love, because in the movies, only thing I've seen was she was young, she was pretty, dude showed up, killed the dragon, married you, happily ever after, and he was rich.
Yeah.
It's never no poor guy. I want you to understand that. It's never no poor guy. So we got to understand that a lot of times we feel like we're failing, or we feeling like, well, I'm this perfect person. But how could you be a wife when a lot of times you haven't seen the role of a wife? How do you be a husband when you've never seen the role of a husband? Because, see, a lot of times we're comparing it to, so when we see faults in a person, we'll immediately say they're not for us. because we're holding on to the ideology of what romance is. I've been with this woman for 26 years. It be highs, lows, up, down, left, rights, and everything else, right? It ain't always been no happy times. You know, people that been married we be married for, what, 20 years next year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
19 in June.
Yeah, 19. It's like we haven't killed each other yet. That's a reality of it, right? Because I don't want to lie to you, because relationship is a growing process. It doesn't start till after you get married. That's what you ain't gonna understand. Most relationships in the first 2 or 3 years after the honeymoon phase is over. I'll tell y'all something about reality, because y'all mind if I be real with y'all? Do y'all mind if I be real? Okay, let me explain to y'all a lot of things about it. A lot of times women mess up, and I told my wife this, because we don't understand the emotions of men. See, everybody has a mother, so we always recognize the emotions of women. Mama get mad, she ain't cooking. You know, she yelling at everybody. You learn to respect mama's emotions very well. A lot of times we might not have a daddy. Or if we did see daddy, he went to work, he comes home, you ask your dad, how we good? It was fine. I'm good. So what happens is, when you start to see a man, and one thing I tell my daughters, I was like, listen, I said, never compare a man to how I treat you, because you got a daddy. You hear what I'm saying? You never based a man on how I treat you because you have a daddy. You my blood. That means that you go kill somebody, I'm just like, I ain't turning you in. I'm daddy. You know what I'm saying? You know, but guess what? I said, but how you judge a man is how you see me treat your mother. Because, see, you're going to be coming to a role of a wife, not going to a role of a daughter. So you need to understand that when they see that Christmas coming through and I make a big spectacle for mama, and I look at my girls, I'm like, ha, hey, when you get married, make sure your husband do this. Or y'all always go out the country. Yeah, when you get married, you make sure you have a man that takes you out the country. Those are the things you have to look for. How was the relationship that I've seen growing up? And if I didn't see a healthy relationship, if I didn't see my mom and my dad love each other, if I see disconnected and everything else, then I got to understand that these are the areas that I have to develop in. Because the problem is, too many times, women are looking for daddies, not husbands.
Say that.
Because, see, now, it ain't too big of a difference, because your husband's supposed to protect and provide like your daddy supposed to protect and provide. But you got to understand something. I don't require nothing from my daughter, but I require something from my wife. Do y'all understand that? So when we go through this thing about development, we have to understand that maybe it's not that God is waiting for this person to develop. Maybe he's waiting for me to develop so I don't self-sabotage when I do get this person in my life.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Because if it's always someone else's fault, one thing about when I really started growing in my marriage is when I began to look at what I could do better. How could I show up better every day? How could I become a better person? I had to quit looking at what I perceived he was doing wrong, because sometimes what you perceive the other person doing wrong could be actually right. If I didn't have a consistent father in my life, you know, I could have took my ideal of what a husband is supposed to be from a fairy tale. Oh, you supposed to cater to me. Oh, you supposed to do this. He does those things, but he gets on me too. He gets on me. And then the thing is, one thing my husband expects for me is to nurture and support, to be his support. So when it comes to a lot of things, it's support. But the thing about it is, it's so important to get in groups where you can be mentored, where you can watch healthy relationships. Because if you can't say 100% you know what a healthy relationship look like, you need to learn. There's so many blogs out there. There's so many people out there. There's so many groups around here. There even Facebook groups private groups that you can join. You need to learn, what is a wife? I remember I was going to Proverbs 31 because I was like, oh, I just want to be a good wife. I want to be a good wife. So I began to study, what is a wife? What is the character characteristics, and I began to focus on myself. And when I began to focus on myself, God began to reveal areas where I needed to work on. And the way I was seeing it was so wrong. And I thought I was right. And that caused arguments, because when he tried to correct me, if I'm thinking I'm right, the thing about it is we're going to be arguing. And so he would try to be like, no, you're looking at this wrong. And I thought I was looking at it right. And it took me focusing on myself. So sometimes you need a season where you just focus on yourself. Even though you see a lot of people around you jumping into relationships or in relationships, learn how to love you. Nobody is going to love you like you can love yourself, because some of us have not even learned how to love ourselves, how to be emotionally present with ourselves. Because if you had a parent, hush up, be quiet when you are crying, when you are upset, not catering to your needs, guess what you learn to do? That what you feel is not important. What you experience, the emotions. So you go through life suppressing these emotions. Learn how to be present with your emotions so that you can communicate. When you do get in a relationship, you can communicate that, and you can experience that emotion in a healthy way. And you won't turn to drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever it is. You know, everybody, you know, when they don't feel like they can get it from themselves, someone else, they turn to something. So it's so important to learn what it is that you need. Learn to experience your emotions in a healthy way. So I just want you to start with you. Start with you. I did that. I started that journey a long time ago. I started with me. And don't look at nobody else but yourself, besides the people that you're sitting under their mentorship. Look at yourself. And how can I change? Because I promise you, if you're always looking at that other person, you're not going to have a good relationship. If you're always looking at what they're doing wrong, you're not going to have a good relationship, because guess what? Nobody's perfect, and they're going to do some stuff. But if you're so focused on how you can improve yourself and they're focused on how they can improve themselves, guess what? That's going to be a good relationship right there. Because what he said earlier, how the work begins after you get married, and he was not kidding. Because when I tell you, all hell broke loose once we got married. And we had to put in some work. When I tell you some work, I had to work on myself. He had to work on himself. We had to allow each other to grow, and we had to understand each other's background and what we didn't get in our childhood and the deficiencies we had. So it took a lot of communication and understanding, but it starts with you. It starts with you.
Very good, very good. All right. So remember we was talking about we're going to tangible things so we can apply empowerment, right? All right. So I'm finna throw out this word that everybody heard before. Now, everybody give me some weird definitions to it. But this good old word starts with an N. It's called narcissist. Yeah, everybody heard that word before, right? We love to throw that word out. There's narcissist.
That's the reason why the relationship didn't work. He was a, she was a.
Yeah. So let me give you, from two therapists, really what narcissistic is, okay? Or better yet, the narcissistic abuse cycle. All right, y'all ready? Y'all ready for this? Okay. All right. Stage one of a narcissistic abuse cycle is, you have to understand, the first is love bombing, right? That's when they're calling you every day. You're the most wonderful person in the world. You know, they're very consistent, right? Until they get what they want. Then all of a sudden the consistency kind of go out the door, right? So even on that, let me explain to you, because, you know, we're all grown and we care about healing, right? That we have to understand that testosterone levels drop 70% after a man gets to know you.
In an intimate way.
Yes, the Bible way, yes. So you have to understand, 70%. So when a lot of times when you see men fall off after they got, because you have to understand, remember when we say we don't understand the emotions of a man? Very different for a woman. What a man wants, once you give it to him, he got what he wanted. What a woman wants is consistency. So you see how it's a difference? Because once he get where he go, he can leave, because he was like, oh, well, see you when I see you. You know what I'm saying? And move on. Because what a woman wants is not that one-time thing. She wants consistent. So that means if you love me, I want consistent love. If you take me out to dinner, I want you consistent take me out to dinner. If you do this, I want consistency. So there's a consistency that women want. So number one, love bombing. That's when they go through this phase and you're the most important person in the world, calling you, hello, beautiful, morning, all this other stuff, queen, modern day stuff, right? Then we go into the second stage. Now, this is the second stage when they start nitpicking. Now it's like you can't do nothing right. At first you showed up and we was happy to see you. Now it's like, man, don't show up to my house without calling. Like, what you doing? All of a sudden, ain't no smiles no more when he see you. All of a sudden, you was very important. Now I understand you left on red for like weeks at a time. Yeah, see, we being real with it. Now, see, this is the phase because, see, part of the narcissist behavior is about control. Once I love bomb you, then that means I cast this fishing hook, and now I got you hooked in. Part of the love bombing things is you'll find out that he'll start slowly separating you, or she will start slowly separating you from loved ones, family members, friends, because it's all about them. Make you inclusive about them. I'll become your voice. I'll become the person that you please. So then when we start nitpicking you, now it's nitpicking, you can't do nothing right. Now it's breaking you down. Now, if you have an anxious attachment style, what are you doing even more? I'm trying to prove to him I'm worth it. I'm trying to do more. I'm going to change my hair because he wanted this way, and I'm going to dress like this because he wanted this way, or I'm going to get 2 jobs for it because I need to be financially stable, so I need to do this and doing that. And so all of a sudden, that anxious attachment style is starting to kick in. Now, most people that are narcissists, they have an avoidant attachment style. So they constantly start pushing away because now you're becoming too much. Now you're calling me too much. You're loving me too hard. Like, God dang. Like, we went on a date yesterday. Why we got to go on a date every month? You know what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden it's that. Now they go to a third stage of it. After they nitpick you, make y'all clingy. Now it's the abandonment. Now all of a sudden I ghost you. You see what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden, every time you do something, I'm blocking you. You don't see from me 2 months at a time. So I block you, you can't block me. So when I block you, I can still make sure I keep my eye on you, though. Because when you start to try to move on, I'm going to miraculously block you and show up and be like, hey, you know what? You ready to work this out again? you ready to go and start over? You know how good it was when we was together. You remember them good times. You remember back when. And so now all of a sudden that hovering is to make sure you don't establish other connections for replacement. So then it comes right back down to it again. Now it's the love bombing. Then it's the rejection. Then it's the blocking. And see, what happens is once you're involved in this cycle, you start to lose your identity. You start to lose what make you in the first place. You starting to question everything else. And one thing that they're going to do is they're going to make you question everybody. So then it's going to be things like, well, what you going to do? John going to want the same thing you from what I did, so what you going to do? So it makes it turn to like every man is the same, that you don't deserve love. So when Miss Latasha was talking about making sure you love yourself and understanding what you bring to the table, understanding that who you are. Because if you're not defined, somebody else will always define you. And they will tell you, they will have a title for you, for who you are in their life. Now, what's even more devastating about the narcissist that hurts even worse is they'll treat you like that, but then they'll jump in another relationship with somebody else, and next thing you know, they the anxious one. Now they catering to them. Like he got kids by you, he ain't taking care of them, but he gonna take care of Sally and her 4 kids, and you just like, hold on. What's going on here? Because guess what? Sally ain't putting up with none of the stuff he doing. And so now all of a sudden he clinging on to that because there's a brokenness inside the narcissist. He's going to seem like he or she wants all the power, but in reality, they're just as broken. We all have places and beginnings, and that's a reality about life. And that's why I say everything is a circle. So as we get our heart broken or sometimes we get older, we have to start recognizing the patterns. Because it's just like seasons. Like we understand that, hey, if you smart, in the summertime, what you go buy? A coat. And in the wintertime, what you gonna start doing? Hey, give me some summer stuff. Why? Because you know that it's gonna be a season. So when you start to identify patterns, like, okay, all right, I seen John before. He's saying the same old thing. I fall to the same thing. Okay, you know what? I'm just not gonna give my heart this time. I have a big thing I say. It's like, what did they do to earn it? Because see, I don't want it to always be this, oh, when I find love, or just gonna come from the sky, and it's gonna be like a Disney movie. Because remember, I told you, Disney is not real. So you need to start to identify before I give myself, or before I get involved in this relationship, who is this person? Am I doing reality? Because if it's the same person that I dealt with, I don't care what they say, they're going to do the same behavior over and over and over again. So I'm going to keep walking around this circle over and over again, getting hurt by the same guy or woman all over again because I'm involved in an abuse cycle. And if I don't take the time and heal, then all of a sudden I'm going to fall into the same trap over and over again. Understand your seasons. Because that's one thing about it. If I understand that, Valentine's is coming up, just like doing Christmas time, right? Christmas time coming up, if I lost people, like we say in therapy, October, November, December are the worst months for depression because it's all emphasized on family. So if I understand that during that time I start missing family, then I understand that February is coming up. So what I'm going to start doing? Love. So now it's going to be the emphasis on love. So if I'm alone, my loneliness is going to start kicking in a lot more. What if I'm sabotaging for it? Am I going to fall into the trap? Because like she said, devil make everything all pretty and everything else. He going to be good for the moment. And February the 14th, I want to say I have somebody to put on social media just for it to make it look good for this fake people that don't care any way about what you post. They really don't. So am I going to sit down and love myself, develop myself, grow, and not fall into the same patterns because I'm starting to identify the brokenness within me? So like I say, the biggest thing about what we're trying to do today is really get you to understand that, hey, there are some things I can look for. There are some patterns I need to know within myself. Because one thing about me, I got married young. I don't like being alone. I told my wife, we had a nice conversation. She was just like, well, you need to find love within yourself. I was like, that's what I got married for.
Okay, Larry, we don't got enough time for that.
Oh, okay. I got you. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. It has been a privilege. And my prayer for all of you is that you continue to love yourself. And those of you that don't or even don't feel like you're worthy of love, that you begin to love yourself and start somewhere. Thank you.